welcome to Books in the Freezer, a podcast dedicated to the deliciously disturbing world of horror fiction. I'm your host, Stephanie, and today I am joined by returning guest and your favorite academic librarian, Jocelyn Codner, to chat about the horrors of doppelgangers and doubles.
Oh, God.
Welcome.
Thank you for this exposure therapy, Stephanie. I really appreciate the trials and tribulations that I've gone through in service of recording this episode.
That's true because you told me this is actually something that really scares you. And
Yes.
I will admit, when you told me that, I thought that was kind of funny until I also read books for this episode and
hmm
began to spiral.
Yes. No, it will get under your skin. And I do think it says a lot about me that doppelgangers and doubles bother me so much. Both, I mean, probably my therapist could have a field day. I haven't even really brought this up with her at all. So maybe that will be the topic of conversation coming next. But yeah, it's so psychological. It's very existential. And for me, I value my individuality. This is so American. I value my individuality and my independence so much that the thought of someone else even slightly encroaching upon me, my essence, what I look like, what I act like, what I sound like, even people trying to like pin me down and like, just normal people in the world being like, I know what you're like. Oh, I don't even like that. I don't
I
even
feel
like
like
that.
that's Aries energy too.
Oh, it is. Oh, it is. I'm such an Aries. Yeah, this is very true. We do think that we are sparkly, shiny diamonds and individuals. That is an unfortunate truth. Yeah, the idea of someone taking my life, not
Hmm.
not like killing. Well, although I guess we'll get into that, but doppelgangers are they are harbingers of death. They're kind of thought of in some versions as like psychopomps, and they'll like shepherd your soul to the afterworld. But like if you see a doppelganger, if you see a double of yourself, in most cultures that have this, it means like you're gonna die soon. Yeah. So like in a way it is taking my life in that sort of darker
Yeah.
sense, but like someone stealing my life and stealing my identity is just so upsetting to me. And another part of what is very upsetting to me about all of this is and we're going to get into this a lot too, when you try to tell people about it and when you try to be like, wait, that's not right, or no, I didn't do that or say that, or like I wasn't at that location that day, as the doppelganger is in the process of stealing your life, and it's in that horrible in between space before you've been eliminated and you are like, I don't know, relegated to a non-human status. There is that moment where like your loved ones and your the people around you who know you are confusing you with the doppelganger because they don't know that that's there, and so they don't believe you when you try to speak and advocate for yourself. They don't believe you, and that is like a separate thing that really really bothers me, is
Yeah.
like when you are trying to speak a truth or advocate for yourself, and this is a very real thing that many people deal with every day, and people dismiss you or straight up contradict you or don't believe you. Wow, that sends me into a rage. It sends me into just a spiral. So when you couple that, that's like a big part of the doppelganger lore. Whew,
Yeah.
man, it's a struggle. It's so hard.
Yeah. I think especially the ones that are looking to either just cause chaos in your
Yeah.
life,
Mm-hmm.
and it just had me spiraling like, oh my God, are the foundations of my life on such shaky
Right.
balance beams? Like it would be so easy for someone to come in and break all the
Mm-hmm.
relationships that I hold dear and
Yeah.
like all the things that I'm like, these are the foundations of my life are actually
Mm-hmm.
so tenuous and so
Yep.
vulnerable.
Oh,
And
oh,
yes, the idea of not really being known and looking at like
yeah.
the person you have chosen to spend your life with, being like, do you really not know me? That you
Right.
would be confused with another version of me?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And it's just like, oh my God, what is anything? Like, what is
Yeah.
this life? And are you someone who gets, this might be feeding into my absolute horror around doppelgangers, but are you someone who gets folks like texting you or messaging you or whatever and being like, I swear I saw you the other day? I saw someone
Okay.
who looked just like you the other day.
I was just about to ask you this. I feel like I have a face because I have like really bold features. Like I have like a big
Yeah.
nose and thick eyebrows. People, like I have had people my whole life tell me I have like doppelgangers. Like they're like, I was on
That's
vacation and
wild.
I saw someone that looked just like you. And I'm like, I just don't think you see a lot of people with like.
Well, there we go. Yeah, and maybe everyone's looking the same to you. Oh, that is fascinating because I would have guessed you would not have had this issue because you really do have such strong identifying features that I'm like, there's only one Stephanie. Like, I don't think I've ever really seen anyone who looks like you, which I think is fantastic because
Thank you.
I have many doppelgangers apparently. And I also think I have distinct features, but because my nose is, I have kind of a weirdish nose. At least I think my nose is kind of weird. And I'm tall. I'm pretty tall and I'm
Mhm.
blonde. And like, I mean, maybe that's it, is like people are just like, yeah, any tall, blonde, white chick, like we all look the same. But I also get people sending me pictures of like people they see in the wild or people they see in print, and they're, or like a video or something. I get this often where they're like, was this you? And they're genuinely asking, and it's not me. And I look at it and I'm like, holy shit, I really could see why you would think that. There are like certain parts of my, weirdly, my nose and my jaw, I think like if you find someone who has the similar features of that, it does make it seem like it's me. And I thought that I would not have that issue, but like there's proof. I feel like I've got doppelgangers out there and they could be coming for me. And that really freaks me out. I don't like
That's
it.
scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm gonna be honest. I don't trust people's uh doppelgangers that they see of me based on just like the celebrity lookalikes I've been told I
Oh,
have, where I'm
agreed.
like, I don't like everyone says Chelsea Peretti. I'm like, again, just big nose brunette.
Big nose brunette.
That's what it is. Or like Sarah Bareilles. I'm like, again, big nose brunette.
People just are like, oh man,
Angelica Houston.
there's
I'm
a
like, no,
nose.
there's not. I'm like, big nose brunette. That's what it is.
People need to just be more used to noses, I think.
I'm like, you've had a
Oh,
Hollywood version of a nose for so long, you
see?
can't like see.
Exactly. Yes, this is the problem. This is a problem with Instagram face.
Yeah.
We need more unique, interesting features in the world. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that yours are false. I feel like mine are a little too close for comfort. It does freak me out. And it's fed this fear of mine for, I don't know. There's so many things about my psyche that feed this fear, but that also, it just starts to reinforce it for me when I see people show me these pictures that I'm like, yep,
Yeah.
yep, that looks like it should be me, but it's not. So that freaks me out. Another thing that I think is interesting about doppelgangers is the doppelgangers use kind of like a metaphor or symbolism, examining kind of a I don't know, duality or
Mhm.
conflict internally where
Yeah.
people are struggling. And I think through a lot of the things we're going to be talking about today, this will be illustrated pretty strongly. But like, when people have such a volatile internal conflict within them, or some kind, I mean, yeah, some kind of like desire that is so strong, or struggle that is like so strong that it literally like manifests as this doppelganger that like represents that conflict or that duality that
Yeah.
they're dealing with. And then it's like you have to physically confront the doppelganger in order to resolve the conflict, or vice versa. You have to internally resolve the conflict in order to confront the doppelganger. And I think that is really fascinating. And I
It
kind of,
is.
I wanted to do more like actual academic research about doppelgangers. And I did like a couple searches like in our databases at work. And I wasn't really finding stuff that was, I don't know, interesting enough to me. It was like mostly reviews for media and things like that.
Yeah.
But I would love if anyone has a book or like a podcast or an article that like examines this part of doppelganger lore. Please send it to me. I would be fascinated to dig more into this part of it because that's so psychological and interesting.
Yeah. Absolutely. I did find this really interesting quote. It's kind of long. It's from Peter Straub. It says, doubleness and duality ripely inform the Gothic, which abounds in lost twins, doppelgangers, secret sharers, and mirrored images. Wilkie Collins built his career on this theme, and the first of Dracula's references to it occurs on the morning after Jonathan Harker's arrival at the castle, when he is approached from behind by the Count while shaving and discovers that his host is not reflected in the shaving glass. To overcome the hard-nosed reader's objections to this impossibility, Stoker has Harker hammer the point home by repeating it twice more. And then he does the quotes. The doppelganger, the most psychologically loaded version of duality, is the figure that has stepped out of the mirror to roam the world, a split off or denied part of the self allowed to run rampant by reason of having been defined as the other. And the other is always that aspect of ourselves we least wish to see in the mirror.
Yes. Oh, yeah. That is an excellent quote. That definitely speaks to what I was just talking about perfectly.
It reminds me, I read a short story by Henry James for this episode called The Jolly Corner, which was referenced in The Haunting of Bly Manor because those were all kind of like, that was
Oh,
kind of like
right.
a Henry James amalgamation. And so there
Hmm.
is a episode called Jolly Corner where Henry Thomas is haunted by his own doppelganger.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
it's interesting because it's about a man who manifests a like kind of could have been version of himself, and like, oh, what if I had done this instead of that?
Yeah.
Like,
Hmm.
what would that life be like? It's who he might have been if he had stayed in America and had become a more successful businessman. And it does end with like a physical confrontation
Hmm.
between the two, which I found like really fascinating.
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
possibilities of what could have been and being haunted by that and having to like literally confront that. It's
Hmm.
fascinating. This has been a fascinating topic.
Yeah, and it is really interesting, as you were talking, like, really thinking about, this is so psychological. There is so much you can dig into, but the thing about the doppelganger, trope or, convention is that there is a physicality to it that a lot of other psychological topics don't necessarily have, because when we think psychological, incorrectly, we think that it is all just internal. But now, most of us understand, especially most of us that have to deal with different psychological things, that it manifests physically in your body as well. And that is very connected. And I feel like doppelganger lore and stories are very true to that experience, where it's like, yes, it is internal, but the internal manifests externally as well. And you are going to have to deal with both.
I think that's also interesting is that there's not just one way that this trope manifests. There are
Mm-hmm.
so many explanations and vehicles for the doppelganger that are not just like folklore.
Yeah, there's so many different ways you can go about it, and there are different intentions too. I mean, a lot of them
Mhm.
kind of follow the similar paths. It's a harbinger of death, or it is like a fracture in the psyche, or struggling with conflict. But some of it can also just be like, yeah, some weird stuff was happening. There's some weird stuff happening.
Yeah. But it could be twins, it could be clones, it could be
Hmm.
parallel universes,
Yes.
alternate dimensions, supernatural like mimics, changelings, like a
Hmm.
folkloric
Yeah. Hmm.
explanation. It's fascinating. I
It
mean,
could be.
I've said fascinating too much, but it just is.
When it is, it is. When it's
Mhm.
fascinating, it's fascinating. Yeah, I think it's fascinating. Well, geez, now I'm doing it too. It's very interesting that it's very interesting that a lot of cultures have something about doppelgangers throughout history. This is kind of an older theme. This is an older thing that people have kind of struggled with and thought about, and it's manifested in folklore in interesting ways. And the one that comes to my mind first, of course, based on my upbringing, is the like evil fairies known as fetches in Irish folklore. And fetches literally fetch your soul and take it to the underworld. Like they're psychoproms, literally. And if you see a fetch, if you see a double of yourself out there in the woods or on a dark night, or, if you're poking around where you shouldn't be, you're going to die. And it's a very classic version of the doppelganger tale. And it's interesting to me that that has manifested in Ireland, it manifested in Germany, it's manifested in like all different places. I'm sure that there is some kind of doppelganger or double folkloric aspect that you can find on pretty much every continent in this on this globe and in every corner of each continent. Like I just
Yeah.
think it's something that naturally occurs in our urge to tell stories as humans. It's like a theme that keeps popping up.
Tales old as time.
Horror as old as time.
I thought we should get into some movies and
Yeah.
shows that get into this. And I kind of wanted to start us off with the Stepford Wives
Mm.
because that is terrifying.
Mhm.
If you've seen the movie, I have not read the book. I do own it. I need to actually
I
finally get
love the
around to
book.
reading because I feel like I would love it.
Yes, I think you'll enjoy. I've read it multiple times. I love that one. It's a top favorite.
Ugh, is the idea that not only is she eventually going to be replaced with a subservient, brainless version of herself,
Mhm.
but she essentially trains it unwittingly by
Yeah,
recording her voice for the
just
doctor. And I mean, the feminist horror that your husband would prefer
mhm.
a version of you that is devoid of everything that makes you you and only the things
Yeah.
that serve
Oh,
him.
oh god. Oh god.
Yeah,
And I think
existential.
this it's so existential. This is one that reflects society like
Mhm,
directly.
absolutely.
Unfortunately, it's still very relevant. And it's one I could talk about forever because you're right, like she is unwittingly complicit in
Mhm.
her own elimination, her own erasure. And it's so upsetting that when that book came out and when the first adaptation came out, it was very much focused on like second wave feminism, 1970s women's rights movement, where women were really leveraging their voice. They were identifying and leveraging their power. They were really breaking out of strict social norms. And, you know, there are a lot of valid critiques of second wave feminism, but they did a lot of necessary work, and it was messy and it was challenging. And it's just, it's that idea of like, when you finally find a strong voice and you're finally building out your individual identity, then it's taken away from you. You know, when you are finally becoming strong in your independence and who you are, oh no, you're not allowed to have that actually. So we're going to create another version of you so that we can push you out and we can just push down your independence and your identity. Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely terrifying for me.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not like we can relate to the patriarchy losing a little bit of power and doing literally whatever it can to
Right? Yeah, don't know
get
what that looks
whatever
like.
it feels like it's owed from
Yeah.
us back
Yep.
anyway.
Yep. Quite literally seeing it today.
Hmm. I mean, we also have Us, which
Oh,
was
oh,
incredible.
oh my God.
This was one I actually wanted to rewatch. And then when I went to
Hmm.
rewatch it, I couldn't find it on streaming. I'm like, of course, this
Oh,
always
jeez.
happens to me.
Right? I know. I was able to rewatch it. This was the first time I watched it since theaters
Hmm.
because I mean, I love Us, but it scares me. It really scares me. Obviously, this is a bit more, I don't, you know, I was going to say it's a bit more fantastical than Stepford Wives, but I think it just depends on, I think the energy is different. It is also kind of strangely sci-fi in some ways. It is really,
Yeah.
really freaky. Like the Uncanny Valley situation, they hit that hard. The acting in this movie is so superb by everybody involved because they have to play themselves and then they have to play their doppelganger, who the doppelgangers are so unhinged and so like maladjusted because of how they came about. It's just really impressive to see the acting done, especially by like the kid actors, and that like they're
Yeah.
incredible. But this movie does a really good job of showing like why all of you just do a great job of showing why I'm so scared of doppelgangers. And I don't want to do any spoilers for Us because there's a lot of really
Yeah.
interesting stuff in it. But it is oh no, I'm not gonna spoil it. I was gonna do it. Well, maybe I'll talk about this when we talk about now. I'll segue into it. The inspiration for Us is that Twilight Zone episode called Mirror Image from the
Yeah.
first episode or from the first season. And Mirror Image is basically a story of a woman whose life gets stolen by a doppelganger. And it's that episode is my favorite episode of the Twilight Zone. I think it kind of illustrates what the Twilight Zone does really well. It's a solid episode. It's concise, it's simple, and it's absolutely terrifying. It also really resonates with me because it takes place like literally where I grew up. So this woman, she's sitting in the bus station waiting for a bus to come in to take her to Cortland. Cortland is where my best friend lived growing up. So I was in Cortland all the time. It was not very far away from where I grew up. Like we were in kind of neighboring towns. So I am always, Cortland is a place I'm very familiar with. And it is really freaky to me that she was like, yeah, I'm taking the bus to Cortland. And then she starts to notice like, oh, her luggage. Weird. Her luggage was right next to her, but then all of a sudden she sees that her luggage is behind the service desk because she had apparently checked it, but she didn't check it. But the guy at the service desk, who the clerk, he's like, yeah, you checked your luggage. And she's like, no, I didn't. And he's like, stop asking me every five
Yeah.
minutes when the bus is coming in. I already told you when the bus is coming in. She's like, this is the first time I've asked you when the bus is coming in. And he's like, no, you're up here all the time asking me. And she's like, what are you talking about? And then she goes into the bathroom, and as she goes into the bathroom and the door is still kind of closing, she catches an image in the mirror of her sitting on a bench waiting for the bus. But then
Yeah.
when she goes back out to look, she's gone. And so then she starts asking people in the bus station, did you see another woman over there? And do you see another woman that looks like me? And everyone's like, what are you talking about? Like, oh my God, the psychological hell that this short episode like brings to me is terrifying. And then this guy comes in, and he's very sympathetic to her, this like younger man, and he's talking to her, and she's revealing that like she is changing jobs. She's going to be moving to Buffalo for a new job, and so she's kind of waiting for the bus to Cortland to then take her to Syracuse so she can go to Buffalo. And he's like talking about, oh yeah, like I was going to fly, Mark and I were, my husband and I were like triangulating in upstate New York, like all of this. And it's because Rod Serling, he was born in Syracuse. He grew up in Binghamton. He taught at my alma mater. Almost every episode of The Twilight Zone, if it takes place in a normal, like our world, is taking place where I grew up. And I think he really hits the weird liminal space vibes of upstate New York. The weird, like everything there is so strange in ways I can't describe. Like it's the burnt over district where
Mhm.
we had a lot of religious fervor and religious cults and spiritualism. There's an energy there that people don't expect. But episodes like this one really kind of drive that home, the liminal spaces, like a bus station, and how that like
Yeah.
it relates to this weird experience she's having, almost like she's in a liminal space in her own brain. This transition, she's transitioning to a new job. I feel like I'm just rambling at this point. I'm just like making string map connections. But this guy was like, yeah, I was gonna fly from Binghamton to Syracuse. And I'm like, you don't do that. Why would you do that? And so he couldn't, for any number of reasons. So he's stuck at this bus station waiting for the bus to Cortland to go to Syracuse. And he's waiting with her, and she's spouting all this stuff off. And he's like, well, let me see. I've got a friend in Tully who can come get us and drive us to Syracuse. And she's like just blank faced, like she's kind of cracked at this point. She's having
Mhm.
such a horrible experience. And he goes up to the clerk and he's like, can I borrow your phone? I'm gonna call the police and like have her taken away. So that's what happened. Like she sees her doppelganger on the bus to Cortland, taking her seat, taking her ticket, taking her life, because her doppelganger is going to make it to Buffalo before her and take the job. So if she gets to Buffalo, it's going to be after her doppelganger. And when she shows up and she'll be like, no, I'm the woman who's supposed to have this job, they'll be like, we already have her. She's already here. And then what do you do? What do you do with when they're like fully rejecting your identity? Where do you go? How do you live your life? So she has a mental breakdown, as one would, and the cops take her away. And then the episode ends with him seeing his doppelganger. The guy who called the cops on her, he sees his doppelganger and has to confront, and he tries to physically confront his doppelganger. And the doppelganger runs away, which is that famous scene. I think people see, they use this scene kind of often in things to show the specific kind of filmmaking technique that they used to show him twice. Now we use like, special effects and AI and stuff like that. But at the time, it was pretty interesting and advanced to show the same actor side by side,
Yeah.
and he's chasing after himself. So I guarantee a lot of people have seen that scene, even if they haven't seen the episode. But anyway, please forgive the rambling. Like, that episode is very intense for me for a lot of reasons, and I think it's brilliant. And
Yeah.
I think Jordan Peele did a really interesting job of like launching off from that episode and creating Us, which is a fantastic movie. If people haven't seen it, go see it.
Absolutely haunting. And I think like I was thinking about the themes like you underestimate how hard people will fight, which brings
Yes.
me to Severance, which I don't know if you watch.
No, not yet. I
Okay.
will. I promise I will.
Um, so it is about this kind of alternate world where there's a powerful like shady corporation called Lumen, and they have invented a procedure that will sever your consciousness so you have like a work self and an everything else self,
Oh,
and it is irreversible. And so the way it works is like you get into the, you get your stuff, you get check into work, you get into the elevator, and something in the elevator like turns on your work self. Your work self has no memories of your life. You do not know outside of
oh,
work anything that happens in work. So
oof.
essentially, you have like a clone of yourself sharing your body.
Oh my God.
The innies, the ones that work at work, like they get into an elevator, they don't sleep, they just open their eyes and they're back in the elevator in different
Mm,
clothes. Like that is
mm-hmm.
their
Jeez.
existence in this life. Like it is
Ugh. Oh.
it doesn't call itself a horror show, but it is a like definitely a horror premise. And I think it's such an interesting vehicle to do kind of like a corporate satire,
Yeah.
but it does so much more than that.
God, it's late stage capitalism meets doppelgangers. What a nightmare. Oh my God.
Yeah, but in this like uh latest season, Adam Scott was able to like find a way to communicate with his innie, and his innie had a quote that was like, you think that you can give people half a life and think that they won't fight for it.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
they will.
Absolutely. Oof. Ooh, I love that. Yes. And we see that in a lot of these other like movies and TV shows that we've listed and the books that we've read. Like, there is the conflict to resolve the split one way or the other. Like, you're totally right. People fight back because it's not tolerable. It's not tolerable to live that way, like having a half life, being split, watching someone else take the best parts of your life, things like that. Like, it's just not something that we can tolerate
Mhm.
mentally or physically. Like, I would dare someone to try to think about tolerating that and see how it feels.
I was listing these. There are honestly so many, and I didn't have time to like really rewatch them. But I know you watched Cam.
Oh God, did I watch Cam? Yes, I posted a thing on social media about my experience watching Cam. So I fortified myself with alcoholic libations in order to
Sure.
watch Cam, and had them continually delivered to me throughout. I thought it was a great movie. Again, like very tight, very like simple in its conceit, and classic doppelganger situation using newer technology. It's about a cam girl who's doing really well and is trying to hit certain milestones with her stream, and then all of a sudden someone steals her online identity, which I think this says a lot about, how we present ourselves online versus who we are in person. Are we creating our own doppelgangers through social media, through streaming, through that sort of like performance of ourselves?
Mhm.
um and so someone steals her online identity and starts streaming as her, and it becomes more and more unhinged, and she can't get her life back. It starts to like seep into her in like IRL life, and it's her struggle trying to take control back of her online identity. And it's kind of commentary on how she was letting that part of her like run her life and dictate everything about her life and the choices that she was making. But she goes to some very extreme lengths to do this, and again, it gets extremely physical, and there is damage done. And it has
Yeah. Oh
another
my god.
thing that really grosses me out. So, like, psychologically, doppelgangers are the things that scare me the most. But in terms of gore, self inflicted blunt force trauma is, I like can't. And that movie, whew, yeah, it does it.
Oh my god.
but I thought it was great. I thought it was a
It
great
was really
movie.
good.
Yeah. There are so many though, like Black Swan is such a perfect
Yeah.
doppelganger movie.
And Perfect Blue, like, they're obviously, like,
Yeah, they're
one is
very
taking yeah,
similar.
very similar, but
Yeah, and
yes,
I
oh
love
my
both
god.
of them.
I put Coherence on here, which is a lot more of a, like, sci-fi alternate reality, like, it's very mind-bending, but I
Mhm.
love that movie.
I didn't get to watch that one, but I'm glad you put it on because there is that whole kind of arm of doppelganger storytelling that is more sci-fi focused and more like multidimensional. And I mean, it still kind of hits on similar themes, but I think that is a really creative and different way to tell those
Mhm.
stories.
Oh, I watched the dark half for this. I was going to read it, but I will say I've DNF'd quite a few Stephen King books
Well,
lately, and I was like, "I'm
yeah,
sorry, I'm not
I have
gonna
read The
add
Dark
this one."
Half and it
Okay.
was a while ago. It was many years ago at this point, and I'm not my impression at the time was that I did not really enjoy it. But when I have said that to other people, I have been met with, "What? You didn't like it?" So now I'm like, "Oh,
Oh,
maybe I should try it again because my
I
memory is a
wasn't
little
I wasn't
fuzzy."
aware it was so beloved in his canon.
I didn't either.
I mean, like, I understand it. I really like when I can tell that Stephen King is working through some stuff
Yes,
through his
very
writing
much
and, like,
that.
how he views himself as a writer.
Mhm.
Um, and that was fascinating. So for people who aren't aware, it's about a writer who writes kind of more highbrow literary stuff, but he has a pseudonym where he writes very pulpy genre, kind of like thriller novels.
Mhm.
And someone comes threatening to out him and like blackmail him that, I'm going to tell people that this is actually you. And so he decides to get ahead of it and just kind of come out. And they do this kind of funny photo shoot where they do a gravestone for the pseudonym name, and he's like literally like burying him. Um,
This hits all the doppelganger themes. It's like classic.
but that seems to like animate that self, and that version of him is out there like committing murder. But it is interesting because it is literally like physically separate from him. It's not like
Mhm.
he gets possessed by this spirit and does it. Like
Yeah,
it does seem
no.
to be like a separate version of him doing these murders, and it is like reconciling these two parts of himself. And
Yeah.
the main literary guy is a professor, and he of course has like a lecture on like duality. He's like
Yeah.
standing in front of a chalkboard that says like duality, and I'm like, love it. Perfect.
It's very heavy-handed. Oh, yeah. Well, I haven't seen the movie, so maybe I should give the movie a try. I think it might be kind of fun just to give
Yeah.
it a go.
I thought it was
Uh,
fine. Like, I don't
yeah.
know.
Well, yeah, speaking of fun movies, I watched for this Single White Female,
Ooh.
famously starring Jennifer Jason Leigh and Bridget Fonda. And I'd never seen it before, but of course I grew
I
up with
haven't
that
either.
cultural shorthand
Yeah.
of like, oh, is she single white femaling you? And like,
Yeah.
to talk about that girlfriend who's just a little too close, who's like taking your clothes, who's maybe like hitting on your boyfriend.
Didn't you have a little bit of this in your
Oh,
life?
I did.
We'll talk about this.
I had a roommate who did stuff like this. Yep, but she didn't look like me, whereas,
Okay.
Jennifer Jason Leigh and Bridget Fonda can pass as each other when done up the same. So, yeah, this movie, I can't I mean, maybe because both you and I hadn't seen it, other people haven't seen it either. I highly encourage you to watch it. This is a
Okay.
very fun 90s thriller, like, sexy thriller romp. Yeah, Bridget Fonda she's a successful it's actually kind of interesting, I think, what she does. She has a software that helps people. Oh my god, I watched this a few months ago. I want to say it's like a fashion software
It's
that
like the one
helps.
from Clueless?
Yeah, kind of. I
Okay.
think I'm probably completely screwing this up, but that was my impression. Or it's some kind of software for design. She's a
Okay.
designer of some kind. Maybe it's fashion. Wow. I can't remember. But she basically has clients and she sets them up with this software. It's a very like now we deal with this all the time, right? Like most of us who have jobs have vendors with software that they have a point person who comes in and works with you as the client and gets you all set up to use the software. she is that person for this software that she developed. And so she is like going out on her own with this, and she's becoming really successful. And it's this same thing as like with Stepford Wives, a woman asserting her independence, building her true identity, finding power, finding a voice. And then there's this other woman comes in. She needs a roommate. She's broken up with her boyfriend because, again, she's asserting her independence and power and developing her identity, and she needs a roommate. And so she gets this woman coming in who seems kind of mousy, kind of helpless, and she takes pity on her. And she, is like, yeah, you can be my roommate, and, you can sublet, etc. And so that's Jennifer Jason Leigh. She comes in and she starts getting very attached to Bridget Fonda, and it spirals quickly. And I do want to warn people, there is a puppy death in this movie. It is brutal. There are parts of this movie that are absolutely brutal. So even though it's like more of a sexy 90s thriller, I mean, it kind of shifts into
Yeah.
horror in some aspects.
I do want to watch that. I've been meaning to watch that for a long time.
It's fun.
All right. Well, should we finally get to some books?
Yes, let's do it. I've been like babbling on, like, big apologies
We've
to the
had
to the
so much to say.
listeners.
Like this list was long. Our
It
document
was.
is full.
Yes, our document is full, and I have to admit, I'm sure everyone has noticed, like, I'm in a weird mindset with
Yeah.
this. Like, I'm not communicating very well with this one. This one
You
is a
are.
struggle for me.
Um I can start us off with
Go for it.
359 by Gretchen McNeil, who is a YA author. Her book was one of the YA picks for summer scares last year, hashtag murder trending, which was a ton of fun.
Oh yeah, I that's on
Uh,
my to-read list. It sounds like a blast.
it is. So I picked this up honestly on a whim. I just saw it on Hoopla. This is about a girl named Josie whose parents are scientists. They're going through a rough patch. They've just separated. She just caught her boyfriend cheating on her with her best friend.
Oof.
And she feels like things just can't get any worse. But that's when she sees a girl in the mirror at 3:59 who looks almost exactly like her.
Is it 3:59 the time of day?
Yes.
Okay.
It's both AM and PM, like, it's literally just at
Oh.
3:59 is when
Ah,
she can see.
the duality of time.
Mhm. It's when she can see this girl who is her, but has, like, a much nicer room, and she's blonder and
Ooh.
prettier, and she also sometimes, if she's not near the mirror at 3:59, gets, like, kind of glimpses through her eyes
Oh.
where she can, like, see what she sees, and in that world, she sees that she, um, is talking to her boyfriend. So
Oh.
in that world, she's still with her boyfriend, and
Oh
so she
my.
finally makes contact and starts talking to this version of herself, and they agree to do a switch, and Josie says, "I'll dye my hair blonde like yours, and we'll meet at the next 3:59, and we'll switch for 24 hours because I just wanna know what it's like to be in your shoes." And so they finally switch, and Josie finds out that this is not as perfect of a world
Ooh.
as she thought it would be.
Mhm.
In this world, Josie is Joe. This is like a dystopian kind of world. Her dad is high up working for the people that control the power grid. And I guess
Mm.
Joe uses his position as leverage for everyone in her life. So she is the most hated person in school.
Ooh,
She is
yikes.
not together with her boyfriend. And her parents also aren't together in this world because her mom was sent away.
Oh, jeez.
And so she's like, "Oh, I don't love this." Oh, also, there's also like these invisible creatures that attack people at night. So there's like a strict curfew enforced, and like no one can be out at night, and everyone needs constant light. So having access to power is literally survival because people need light on at all
Oh,
times
yeah.
to be safe.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's like a very intense world. So at the next 3:59, she's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa." And she goes, and the other Josie has put the mirror in the basement, like facing a wall, closing the
Uh-huh.
portal.
Uh-huh. Yep. No, it's, and this is such a great example of like the dimensions in doppelganger stories where it's like there's another world, And perhaps the reason your doppelganger is trying to steal your life is because their world is horrible
Yeah.
and they want to flip the scenario and like flip their situation, which that is definitely that pops up a lot and stuff we've already talked about and stuff we will continue to talk about.
So she's stuck in this world. She has to find a way to make allies where everyone hates her. She has to try to convince people that she is not the
Oh,
Joe that everyone hates, but Joe C. And
no.
yeah, somehow in this like dystopian world that's like high surveillance, figure out how to get her life back.
Oh my God. Oh, this sounds so stressful, but it sounds really good, but
Oh,
it
it
sounds
was
really
so fun.
stressful.
It was such a fun read. Very stressful. The
That's
stakes
going on my
are
list.
high. Um, there are casualties. I would say this is fridge. There are casualties. Those like invisible bird things are no joke.
Yeah.
They like clean you dry.
Ooh. Ugh.
Yeah, it's rough.
Wouldn't want to live there either.
So this is 359 by Gretchen McNeil. Probably technically more a sci-fi thriller, but it's
Hmm.
fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that sounds good. Okay, so my first pick is Such Lovely Skin by Tatiana Schlote-Bonne, which, Tatiana, I'm sorry if I mispronounced either part of your last name. This came out last year. It's a YA, and this is such a great like classic doppelganger tale. So we follow Viv, who is a teenage Twitch streamer, who is really wrestling with her immense grief over her toddler sister's death that recently happened. This is a very painful loss for her,
Oh my
and
gosh,
it's
yeah.
yeah, it's kind of all consuming for her. And as the book goes on, we understand more and more as to why it is particularly painful and consuming for her. So Viv has taken a break from her Twitch stream, but she decides to go back to it because she misses it and she misses her followers. And also, she has a nemesis that she has to, keep at bay, keep in check. You always have to be watching your nemesis and making sure they don't get too big for their britches. So, she returns to her Twitch stream, and to do this, she decides to do a playthrough of an indie game that someone has just been repeatedly sending her and has been like very adamant that she play. And so she decides to check it out. And when she's doing that, not on her stream, just herself, she has a very weird experience with it.
Yeah.
It is a creepy sounding game. The scenes with the game definitely freaked me out a lot. So she's like, "Ooh, okay, so that's strange." But sometimes indie games are weird. But then weird things start to actually happen to her IRL outside of the game. And people start to say that she was places that she wasn't, or that she was responsible for like horrible things that she has no memory of doing. And she's trying to communicate to her friends and family that, like, I don't know what you're talking about, but the evidence is damning. There's stuff on her phone. People have like video of her doing things. And she's like, that's not me, but that person looks like me. And that person's wearing my clothes. And eventually she has a direct confrontation with this thing that looks like her. Um, and it is nasty. This thing. It's a demon. It's a demon. It's a demon that likes to do doppelganger shenanigans. And it becomes pretty clear that the indie game that she played has something to do with this demon. I don't want to give too many spoilers away, but this book is really, really fun. It is like just plot heavy, like a romp. You're just like blasting through it. The characters are fun. I really enjoyed the teenage characters. Something that was funny was that Tatiana was using, I like it when authors do this. I think it's a good natured thing to do. She was using some of her negative reviews as advertisement for the book.
Yeah.
And I think that's fun to see like some of the 1-star reviews. And some people were like, oh, this is just like cringe teenage nonsense, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, felt kind of authentic to me. I don't
Yeah.
know. Like teenagers just kind of are cringe. And I really enjoyed Viv and I enjoyed all of her friends. There's kind of a budding romance in it too
Yeah.
that I thought was fun. So I really enjoyed my time with this book. And the thing that's interesting with this one is that this is an example of a doppelganger that has manifested itself to torment her as kind of a representation of this incredibly strong internal conflict that she's been holding inside of her, having to do with the death of her little sister. And the way to defeat the demonic doppelganger is to address it physically, like, and kind of, she has to address the conflict. If she doesn't address the conflict inside of her in the real world, then the doppelganger is just going to completely take over her life. And this is like a chaos doppelganger. This is one that doesn't necessarily want to steal her life. It's one that wants to ruin her life.
Yeah.
So that is the aim of the doppelganger. And there's so many fun elements to this story. I do want to point out one that maybe people didn't expect. There's like a fun detective aspect to this where like her and her friends are like, we're going to solve the mystery.
Yeah.
And they're like digging into stuff. And so in that way, I feel like there's so many parts of this that feel reminiscent to the Fear Street books. And like, I've been listening along to a new Fear Street series and I've been having so much fun with it because those books are so unhinged. And I think that like this book, I think that Such Lovely Skin is better quality than the Fear Street books. It's a better told story. It's a stronger book because those ones are really wild, but it has the same energy.
Yeah.
It's in spirit with the Fear Street books. So I really recommend it if you're looking for a good time. And it really freaked me out as someone who is terrified of doppelgangers. So I would say that this is a fridge book, and it might, for me personally, tip towards the freezer. There's some physical stuff in there. It's a lot like Cam. Cam is kind of like a
Yeah.
direct comp for it. There's some things that happen in Such Lovely Skin that also happen in Cam. And it's playing with that idea of technology and our performing selves and the kind of identity we craft online versus who we are in real life. And it's also playing with that psychological fracture and an aspect of who we are or an aspect of something we've done that we can't abide by. And we have to resolve it in order to continue. So yeah, that's Such Lovely Skin by Tatiana Schlote-Bonne.
I also read this in preparation for this episode and I loved this.
Mm-hmm.
Um so in regards to her sister's death, it's one of those books where like you don't know the full story. Like you
Yeah.
kind of get bits and pieces as you get closer to the end, to kind of
Mm-hmm.
figure out like why she feels the way she does. And like the pit I had in my stomach every
Yes.
time we got those chapters, I was like, oh
Oh, I
God,
know.
oh God.
Yep. The tension building is done so well in this book, and it is brutal.
Yeah. My next pick is The Changeling by Victor LaValle, which I read a few years ago, but I remember loving. I'm pretty sure it was like a 5-star read for me.
Yeah.
But this follows Emma and Apollo, who are a married couple in New York City. Emma is a librarian, Apollo is a rare book stealer, and they have a son named Brian. Emma becomes plagued with disturbing feelings that Brian is not their son and he has been replaced with a changeling, which is a strong thing to assert,
Yes.
you know? And so, Apollo obviously thinks she's going through some like a postpartum depression.
Mhm.
She needs to seek help. And he wakes up chained to a radiator, and Emma kills Brian in
Mhm.
front of him and
Oof.
leaves. As you can imagine, he does not know what to do with this
Nope.
with this experience, and he goes to her work and holds her coworkers hostage, asking about where Emma is, and he gets arrested for this and sentenced to Rikers for a bit. When he gets out, he kind of gets back into the rare book dealing where he sells a book to someone who tells him essentially that he knows where Emma is. And this kind of starts a very like modern fairy tale journey. It's very like magical realism,
Yeah.
like fabulism stories and figuring out the truth about Emma and about Brian and about what's going on. And this is, I think, exactly what I want out of a modern
Mm.
fairy tale,
Mhm.
and that it
Agree.
doesn't feel like it's like nodding too hard to like any specific thing, but it's very true to like whatever the modern setting is. I also love the idea that this is a story about a black couple told by a black author about
Mhm.
Scandinavian folklore.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's also just like a very well plotted, beautifully written story about parenting in the modern age, about grief, about loss, about generational trauma,
Yeah.
and about all these
Mhm.
things. I kind of want to check out the Apple TV
I know I haven't
adaptation.
watched it yet, but it looks so good. And
It
this is
does.
also one of my favorite books of all time.
Mhm.
I read it when it came out. I haven't reread it since, partially because I'm like, I loved that first experience of reading it so much. It's so rich. There's so much to it. It was so brutal and so magical, which are weird things to say together. But I'm very interested in watching the Apple TV adaptation.
I think this is a fridge book for me from what I remember.
Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah. But that is The Changeling by Victor LaValle.
And that also reminds me of that movie, The Changeling, starring Angelina Jolie, that
Yes.
came out, oh, geez, a while ago.
A long time
Yeah. And I think that was based kind of on true events.
ago.
And
Mhm.
it's that idea of like that classic changeling lore of, oh, this is not my baby. You know, in fairy tales and folklore, it's fairies swapping out your child, like taking your child and replacing it with a fairy child or like magical child of some kind. And it's just like a way to infiltrate the human world. And I guess they also want human babies. I don't know. I don't speak for the fairies. But there's that idea. It's like so tied with, yeah, postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, and psychosis, these very real medical issues that women have after giving birth that were not known for a very long time and still are not very well known. And sometimes that manifests with like, this is not my child. Like, there's the distancing between you and this creature that like lived inside you and was born of you, and your hormones are going wild and you're not mentally well, and you're like, this is not mine, get rid of it.
Mhm.
And that movie was so stressful, just thinking about this idea of like, yeah, okay, in with doppelgangers, you are the one that's being replaced, but with changelings, oftentimes those stories, you are watching someone else being replaced. So
Mhm.
then you're trying to say that's not the person we think it is, and you're the one who's being told that you're crazy.
Yeah.
And so it's just, oh, that really freaks me out too. And there's a lot of good stories surrounding changelings, which I also have a changeling book, but it's not this one. My next book is The Watchers by A.M. Shine, which came out in 2021, and it was adapted last year in 2024 by M. Night Shyamalan's daughter, which I unfortunately don't remember her first name. Sorry to her. Um,
Sorry to this man.
I know. I really didn't mean to be rude about that, but
It's
this takes place in Ireland. This very much like plays with folklore, fairies, fetches. It follows Mina, who is tasked with transporting a bird for a friend, but her car breaks down in like a strange woods somewhere in Connemara. And she tries to go on foot to find help, only to come across like a strange bunker in the woods where like a few people live, and terrifying creatures that come out at night. And the bunker is home to this group of people who have found themselves stuck in the woods in similar ways to Mina, like their cars have broken down or they get lost. And then these creatures come out and they have to take shelter in this very specifically constructed bunker. The bunker has like like a huge glass wall. And at night, all of the, I'm going to call them captives, have to go into the bunker and they have to stand in front of the glass wall so that they can be watched. And they have to kind of stand in a particular way. They have to act in a certain way, or the watchers, who are these terrifying creatures, get very upset. The watchers are terrifying. They kind of feel just, they're like these, uh, I don't know, primordial, ghostly, not ghostly, but like vampiric sort of violent creatures, and they will just like rip you to shreds. So you want to be careful around the watchers. And they explain to her that she can never leave now. She can't leave the woods. She can't leave the bunker at night. The creatures only come out at night, but it's impossible to escape because the woods kind of seem to be enchanted in some way, like they are bigger leaving than they were coming in. So it's hard to figure out a way to make that journey out of the woods before night falls. And if you are trapped in the woods when it gets dark, the creatures will come and just shred you, and you'll have a really painful death. Um, Another thing that these creatures do, though, is mimic you. They mimic your appearance, they mimic your voice, your mannerisms, like all of it. And they like to watch you and to study you so that they can better mimic you and better mimic humans. So Mina learns eventually that these creatures are actually ancient fairies, and they're kind of like fetches in that way, that have been trapped underground by humans like centuries ago after a monstrous battle between humans and fairies. And now they're escaping. They're escaping their seal and they're coming back. And so Mina and her fellow prisoners are trapped in this bunker where they do eventually make some like really shattering discoveries that may or may not help them escape their situation. And I don't
Ooh.
want to give too many spoilers away for that. There are a lot of fun twists in this book, and I did really enjoy a lot of parts of it, but I felt like it didn't really coalesce in a way that felt really satisfying. Like it had so many really fun, interesting elements. Like I really loved the folklore aspects. I loved the ragtag crew that's like thrown together. I loved all the twists. There's an element of research in this, and I love that when there's like a little element of research and discovery and horror. And there's survival horror, which is another favorite of mine, but it
Mhm.
has some really strange like parts. It has distinct parts, and I felt like the juxtaposition of those parts did not flow as well as I wanted it to, but I did like all the parts, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um so I saw the movie too. Did you see this movie?
No, I didn't.
So
What'd you
I
think?
I interestingly my opinion has changed since I read the book. So I saw the movie first before I read the
Okay.
book. And when I watched the movie, I was like feeling that lack of cohesion in the plot. And I was like, man, I feel like this was actually just like not a well adapted book, like movie. Like I thought maybe the issue was in the adaptation, but actually that's what the source material is like too. So now I'm like, well, actually that was a really good adaptation of the book. And I think my read on it is unpopular, but I really liked the movie on reflection. Like after having read the book, I'm like, yeah, that movie was fun. I thought it was well acted. I thought it the cinematography was gorgeous. I thought it was well directed. The story though just feels like, I don't know, it could, there's something's missing there. That being said, there is a sequel that I will probably check out because maybe that will help resolve that sort of lack of cohesion. But yeah, this book, I would say it's like a warm fridge, maybe room tempish. I mean, it's, there's some really scary parts with the fairies. They are nasty, nasty, nasty creatures. And then there's some scary parts with the mimicking and the doubling that happen later. Um, and so, yeah, I don't know, warm fridge probably. It's more dark fantasy, maybe not in the way that most people think of dark fantasy, but like strictly like it is
Yeah.
fantasy and it is darker.
Yeah.
And I thought it was fun.
I've been like curious about it. I've like seen the movie on streaming, so maybe I will check it out.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly, it's a very pretty movie.
Okay. My final pick is a little complicated because it is Stranger with My Face by Lois Duncan. This was published in 1981, and I will say I don't think it has aged
Yeah,
that well. So
yeah,
I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of spoil it and talk about it in its
that's
entirety
fair.
because I feel like there's a lot of interesting things to explore here. So we are following a protagonist that is a part of a wealthy family. They live in an island in New England. Again, like Brian McCauley mentioned on the
Yeah.
one of the Fear Street episodes, like all these like Lois Duncan, R.L. Stein, like everywhere is like a bunch of bluffs and
Yes.
like cliffs.
It's so
So heavy,
true.
heavy on that. So she is in this wealthy family, and she makes several notes that she is just much tanner than the rest of her family.
Interesting.
Um, yeah. People start noting and telling her that she was places that she wasn't. Like,
Ooh.
"Oh, I saw you talking to so and so at the beach yesterday." And she's like, "I wasn't. I was at home with my family having dinner. What are you talking about?" Eventually, she sees this like version of herself and she does some research and finds out that she's adopted. And the
Hmm.
mother's reaction to her asking about her adoption is diabolical because she's like,
Oh.
"Oh, so you hate me?
Oh
Like I
God.
never like I never wanted you to find out." It's ridiculous. It is the most
Sheesh.
unhinged response
Yeah.
to that. So she finds out she is adopted. And not only was she adopted, she has a twin. And the parents adopted
Mm,
her and not the twin. And
yikes.
she was, I mean, is Native American.
Uh-huh.
Here's where we
Uh-huh.
get into some stuff.
We have laws about that now.
Um, so She makes contact with this twin sister who is astral projecting.
Oh my lord.
Yes.
There's so much already. There's so much already.
And she's talking to this new girl at her school who is from Arizona and liked a Native American boy, so she knows about
Oh,
Native
jeez.
American stuff. This will not be the last. Um, and she's like, "Yeah, Native Americans do astral project, but you can't just do it because you're Native American. You have to be taught how to do it." But in
Mhm.
fact, basically, the twin sister walks her how to do it, and she's a pro immediately
Oh my
because she is
god.
Native American.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, of
Um,
course.
and so, as you can imagine, the twin sister tricks her into astral projecting and then takes her body
Oh my god.
and her
The
life.
tricks.
Yep.
Doppelgängers are okay, has anyone actually, like, mentioned that doppelgängers might be just, like, trickster gods? This is coming to me now.
Probably. Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, continue.
I will make a note that this doppelganger puts in 0 effort into acting like this girl was a vegetarian, and she's, like, digging into chicken at lunch,
Ooh,
like, just absolutely puts no effort.
interesting.
Like, she breaks up with a boyfriend, starts dating this popular guy, like, she just starts, like, causing chaos and not acting like her in any way, so
Mhm.
immediately everyone in her life is like, "Something is
Yeah,
up."
yeah, mhm.
So she is saved because her one friend who knew about Native American stuff because
Oh,
she
right,
dated
of
a Native
course.
American boy,
Yep.
he gifted her a turquoise eagle pendant that wards off evil.
Oh, jeez.
And the friend like throws it at the doppelganger and it like expels her spirit.
Wow.
And so she's able to like get back into her body. But while, the other sister doesn't have a body to go into anymore because she was essentially comatose in, like, an
Oh.
insane asylum, and they unplugged her and
Oh.
cremated her body.
Oh my lord. Whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Wow. This
And
is
so
bonkers.
insane. And so she just notes that this spirit is just out and about, basically, like, waiting for her chance
Oh,
to take
jeez.
over again.
Oh my goodness. You know, if this book was not, racist,
I
I
know.
feel like it would be really fun to really dig into because it also talks about like astral projection as a thing, which, in Insidious, that's why he's astral projecting. He's in a comatose state, and so he's off astral projecting. Like, oh man. Wow, what Lois Duncan. Good lord.
And it was, like, interesting as a YA novel because, like, she starts talking to this boy who was disfigured, and there's kind of this battle of, like, what she feels she should like versus being true to herself and being like, "No, like,
Mm.
this guy isn't popular and people shun him, but, like, this is actually who I like."
Uh-huh.
It does have, like, a weird thing where his rich parents just, like, pay for him to have, like, facial reconstruction surgery. I'm like,
Ooh, that's another weird sort of idea of, like, doubling and different identities
yeah,
and
it was odd, but it was also interesting, and I think also with some of the films we mentioned, kind of this idea of privilege and us, like, do we deserve the life we have? Like, what if there's another
mm,
version of us that's less
mhm.
privileged that will, like, do
Yeah.
anything to take our place?
Ooh, that is a good point. See, this stuff is very connected to social
Mhm.
issues. Very connected.
And yeah, that was a wild ride. I have kind of been on my, like, vintage YA kick.
Yeah, that's kind of a fun place to be.
So, do not astral project, do not leave your body unattended.
No. Yeah, guard your body,
Okay?
guard yourself, guard your identity. I'm not saying you should set up really elaborate sort of, tests for your significant others. I'm not saying that you should
I'm
say,
saying you should, though.
I am too, actually. Make sure you home alone booby trap your psyche for
Yeah,
anyone trying to get in.
and that's my final pick.
All
That
right.
is, Stranger with My Face by Lois Duncan.
My final pick is my Changeling story that I
Ooh.
picked, which is The Hiding Place by CJ Tudor, which I love CJ Tudor. She's such a good time. I feel like CJ Tudor is a really good entry point for folks into horror. If you are someone who enjoys mystery or crime thrillers, check out CJ Tudor, and that might kind of give you an idea if you want to go deeper into horror. But The Hiding Place follows Joe as he returns to his hometown to investigate a tragedy that reminds him of a horrible part of his own past. When Joe was a teenager, his little sister disappeared. Another thing with a little sister, very strange. And when she returned, she was not right. She was very withdrawn and violent, antisocial, and extremely creepy. And Joe knows far more about her actual disappearance than he could say at the time. But because he knows a lot about like why she disappeared, he knew that this little girl who came back couldn't actually be his little sister. And he felt
Hmm.
that she was absolutely a changeling of some sort. So now, as a grown man, he is seeing something similar happen again. It's like popping up in the news, and he was made aware of it. So he decides to return home to a place he is not welcomed at all and begins investigating what could have happened to these kids and what that might have to do with an old, abandoned, collapsed coal mine. But a different kind of trouble from his less distant past follows him as well. And so he has a lot of battles to fight on all fronts. So it's like one of those things where like he's got other stuff happening. He's had a kind of a weird and rough life, but and a lot of that has to do with this original trauma that he suffered with his sister and how that kind of exploded and created more trauma in his life. And so now when he's coming back to resolve this, some of his other issues are following him and he has to resolve those too. So it's very much a book about confrontation and like coming clean and things like that. So yeah, like I said, this kind of dips more into the changeling trope. With most of CJ Tudor's work, it is more of a crime mystery thriller, but it has some heavy suggestions of the supernatural. And I feel like all of the stuff I've read of hers kind of falls into that category where it's like she'll really ride that line of like, is this
Hmm.
supernatural? Question mark. And sometimes you don't learn if it is or isn't. Like she'll leave that open. So this was really fun. This I like blasted through this. I listened to the audiobook and it was great. So if folks like audiobooks, I recommend it. But it's not really like I wouldn't say it's super scary. There's like
Yeah.
some brutal scenes in there. There's some disturbing things, but this is a room temperature book. This is pretty accessible. So if people do like a crime mystery thriller, I suggest checking out The Hiding Place by CJ Tudor.
Ooh. To do that. And I think both of us have some kind of honorable mentions we wanted to
Yes,
mention because there's a lot.
there's a lot.
Uh, yeah. Like I wanted to mention The Outsider by Stephen King, which I'm sure someone is
Mm,
like screaming that I didn't
yes,
mention.
I know, right?
I mean, a book I remember really enjoying. I think I gave it 5 stars. It is about a man who is convicted of a crime. Like he is seen committing the crime
Hmm.
on CCTV footage. Like he
Yeah.
like that is you. You were here. You committed this crime. And he's like, "No, I have witnesses that show I was
Hmm.
actually coaching a little league game.
Yep.
So, what do you say to that?" And so it kind of begins this like how could he be in two places at once? Like what is going on here? And there's more to it. And we are following an investigator looking into this and Holly makes an appearance in this book.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, it's
Mhm.
a Holly universe.
Mhm.
I haven't read The Outsider. I am very excited to read it, but I did watch the HBO show
Mm.
and it was very good in my
Yeah.
opinion. And based on the show, I don't know what the differences are between the show and the book, but it also has kind of a folkloric
Yes.
nod, I would
Mhm.
say. Just kind of, again, there's yet another culture that has these dudes, and they're dangerous, and you should be careful about doppelgangers. But yeah, I'm excited to read The Outsider.
I remember really loving it. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a couple honorable mentions. I read the short story For She is Fearfully and Wonderfully Made by Tim Waggoner. And this was great. This was very unsettling. Basically, it is about a man who has a daughter who's like high school age, and he drops her off at school. It's a very simple story. He drops her off at school and he's driving home, and he sees her walking in a place that she shouldn't be able to by the laws of physics. Like,
Yeah.
he has driven a distance. She should not have been able to beat him to this spot, but it's her. And he has a little bit of like a confrontation with this lookalike of his daughter. And I think a lot of it has to do with like I think he's a single parent maybe in the book, and like the anxieties of raising a teenage girl, especially as like a dad,
Yeah.
and figuring out like, oh, their personality is changing and kind of, shifting to something maybe I don't recognize as the parent. But I thought it was like a very tight, well crafted short story, and definitely unsettling. Okay, so I tried to read this. I tried to listen to it, and I also checked it out from the library, and my brain was just not in the space for the Russians. So The Double by Dostoevsky is a famous doppelganger classic. So I just wanted to, give a little nod of the hat, a little tip of the hat
Mhm.
to The Double, but I did not read it. I will eventually. If someone out there has read it, please let me know what you think of it. I struggle with the Russians. I think, some people, it's for some people, it's not for everybody. I would like to get there one day. So there's that. And then The Need by Helen
Yeah.
Phillips. I love this book. I love this book so much. I read it back when it came out. Um, it is really twisty and wild. There are a lot of different reveals throughout. It's very
Yeah.
satisfying in that way. But this is basically about a woman who's a young mother. She has like a 3 or 4 year old, and then kind of a newish born. I think the baby is still breastfeeding. And her husband is away on a trip and will be for a couple weeks. So she is single parenting. She's also a scientist doing important work. So she's stretched pretty thin. She's having a very difficult time with the kids. It's very physically and mentally exhausting. This book, if you're trying to decide if you want to be a parent or not, if you want to have kids or not, you should probably read The Need. She really goes into the tactile nature of motherhood. And that was very interesting for me. So there's a lot of that going on, the struggle of being a parent. And then all of a sudden, an intruder starts to just like come into her house. And there's just like this person in her house, and she confronts the intruder at one point. And it's been a while since I've read this, but I'm pretty sure the intruder had like a deer mask on when they're like having this confrontation. And then the intruder takes the deer mask off, and it's her. It's like her double, it's her doppelganger. And they end up having this really weird arrangement where like the doppelganger stays in the house with them, or like in the garage, or the basement or something, and they're like trading on and off. And it's like gets kind of weird because like the doppelganger definitely wants to take her life, and she's not necessarily opposed to having help. And
She's
so,
like, "I'll take anything." I
right.
listen, have you ever been a single mom in this
Right,
climate, even for a little
seriously.
bit?
Right,
Like,
just for a weekend or a night.
evil doppelganger, I get what you're doing. If you could change some diapers for me and do the dishes, like, we'll talk later.
It'll be
I'm dying.
fine. I know.
I'm drowning.
We'll discuss the terms later. And I might be misremembering a lot of this,
Yeah.
so feel free to yell at me if I'm wrong. But this weirdly then goes in a kind of a sci-fi direction, because this has something to do with different dimensions.
Yeah.
So this is when I definitely am overdue for a reread, because I did really love it. And I thought it addressed a lot of interesting stuff about parenthood and motherhood in particular, and how maybe yourself fractures when you become a mother. And that idea of the Henry James story that you're talking about, of like what could have happened,
Yeah.
what other different kind of lives could I have led if I made different decisions. Like, everybody, that's a universal experience.
Yeah.
Everybody experiences that. And I think a common one is around parenting. For people who decide not to have kids, and for people who decide to have kids, there is always that other version of yourself who made the opposite decision. And some
Mhm.
people will really let that eat them alive. So I thought that was a really fascinating sort of
Yeah.
examination in The Need. But yeah, that was a great one. And then both of us were we both intended to read Last to Leave the Room
Yeah,
by
we did.
Caitlin Starling, which is also a doppelganger story, but neither of us got a chance to. But both of us have it and we're ready to read
Yeah.
it. So, at some
I
point,
literally own it in 2 formats, and I'm like,
yeah.
"Good, so I can make sure to read it for the
Yep.
doppelganger episode."
I
And
know,
then
I
we set the
bought a
date, and I was
copy.
like, "Dang, I didn't even start it. Okay."
No, I know. So that'll
Sometimes
be a
that
fun
happens.
treat. Yeah, it does. Yeah. We're all guilty of it, but it'll be a fun treat for us in the future. We can
That's
maybe
true.
buddy read or something. Everyone can
Yeah.
join in.
All right. Well, are we ready to talk chilling obsessions?
Yes, always. Do you want me to go first?
Sure.
All right. So I've been kind of singing the praises of this for a while, but I'm going to continue to do it.
Do it.
I read recently It Came from the Trees by Allie Russell, and I'm obsessed with it. I love it. It's one of the best middle grade YA horrors that I've read. And I read quite a bit of middle grade and YA horror. I really like, especially middle grade. I think middle grade horror does such a wonderful job of A, being terrifying, and B, addressing real issues in life and in society. And so It Came from the Trees is about a young girl who's kind of like tween age, and her best friend join up with a kind of like scouting troop, this like girl camping club. It's like kind of like Girl Scouts, but the whole focus is on camping and like backpack camping. So they're like going out into the woods with their backpacks, hiking out, setting up their tents, spending a couple nights in the woods doing hikes, and then coming back. So it's pretty serious business, in my opinion. And
Mhm.
so they join up with this group that they don't really fit in with. It's mostly like rich white girls. These are two brown girls, and like they're not being treated very well
Yeah.
in the group. And their first night of camping, a creature breaks into their tent, like rips into their tent and steals the best friend and just like abducts the best friend and takes the best friend away. And this was horribly traumatic, obviously, but people don't believe our main character when she tries to describe exactly what happened, and that her best friend was taken by a Sasquatch, and no one will believe her. And then, sure enough, the search for her best friend dies down. People are saying she ran away because, why people don't pay attention when little black and brown girls go missing, and they say that they ran away, and so all of the resources and the police attention are taken away from the search, so it's just the best friend. That's She is all that she's got left is our
Yeah.
main character. She's got to go out there and find her best friend, and she's gonna do it. And she like prepares all of her supplies. She comes up with a plan. She joins another scouting camping troop that's different, and she goes back out into the woods with this plan, and she soon realizes that she can't do this alone, and she has to rely on other people to help her, and she has to let other people into her life again to help support her in finding her best friend. So there are some very terrifying scenes in this book. The Sasquatch horror is legit. There is some like wild brutality, but there is a lot about friendship, found family, bonding, defending each other, fighting for each other, standing up for what's right, even when everyone is saying that you're wrong or you're crazy or to shut up. It's a lot about like resilience and like making that stand and fighting for the people around you and the people that you love. And it's really well written and plotted excellently. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. So It Came from the Trees by Allie Russell. Definitely pick that up. I'm really excited for whatever she writes next.
I've had this on my list, so I need to finally read it.
Yeah,
It
it'll
sounds
go
really
quick.
good. It
Yeah,
sounds really good.
it is. It's fun.
My chilling obsession was one I mentioned earlier because I just finished the 2nd season of Severance, so
Mhm.
now I'm caught up. I will say I'm glad I kind of waited to watch it because season 1 came out in 2022 and it ends on a cliffhanger, and so people watching had to wait 3 years.
Oh, see, this is why I haven't started it yet. I'm waiting for it to be done.
Oh my gosh, but it's so interesting. I told you the premise up front. If you've seen the trailer, yeah, like everyone kind of their Audi makes a video talking into the camera, like I, Mark S, like willingly and of my own accord am undergoing the severance procedure. I understand I will be severing my work self to like my outer self, I make these statements freely. I'm aware that this process is irreversible.
Oof.
I love the corporate satire of it in the motivations that the
Mhm.
corporation gives them to keep them going, because like how do you motivate people whose whole
Ugh.
existence is at work? So
Yep.
there's like, oh, you get like little finger traps, you get
Oh,
little
jeez.
company swag, you get like a melon party. You
Yep.
um and so it is just absolutely fascinating. Everyone in the cast is just doing an incredible job. There's like these weird overtones, and you're just kind of trying to figure out what is going on. Like, why would people choose to do this?
Yeah.
What kind of work are they doing?
Yeah, that is a good question. Exactly. Hmm. I feel like I mean, I've been seeing people talk about Severance obviously a lot. It's especially
Hmm.
this season, people are really
Yeah,
talking about it online. I'm recognizing the memes. I know it's from Severance, but I did not really know a whole lot about it. And like, it just sounds, oh, it sounds so good. It sounds so good. I know everyone's saying it's good, but like, oh, okay. Mark and I need to get on this.
it's interesting. I'm watching it with Jesse, and he's very like wary of high concept shows
Yeah,
because he's like, they bring you in and then they don't always deliver. They don't
that's
always know
true.
where things are going.
He's
And
not
he's like,
wrong.
so I'm like, they need to know where they're going. Like there needs to
Hmm.
be a
I
clear path.
know.
Don't
I
lost us, you know?
exactly. Yes, yes. Oh, I hope they yeah, I hope they have a clear vision and a clear goal and a clear ending point. That's the
Hmm.
most important part.
But the other tradition we have on the show is to ask our guests for a final girl song. So what are you blasting? What are
Well,
you?
yeah. I feel like I've done so many Final Girl songs, but it's always fun every time. So we recently saw, like a couple days ago, Stick to Your Guns live.
Hmm.
Stick to Your Guns is a hardcore band. They've been around for a while, and they're very like they have a very strong message of activism, but from like a hopeful and positive lean.
Hmm.
I guess people could call them like hope core vibes. You know, they're talking about like the ills in our society, but not from a doomer perspective. They're like, we can change this. We can take care of each other and lift each other up and change our circumstances. That's kind of like a classic hardcore sort of stance to take, but Stick to Your Guns has just always been so strong in their messaging, and they are a very political band. So, you know, as punk usually tends to be,
Yeah.
but they are very political, and seeing them live, especially right now, felt amazing. It felt very needed. It felt very
Yeah.
healing. There is a song off of their 2015 album, Disobedient, that they played live, and it's called What Choice Did You Give Us? And I
Yeah.
feel like this is America's final girl song.
Yeah.
Okay. So go listen to that song. Listen to the lyrics. And yeah, I mean, it's basically like when you get pushed to a certain point, like, what choice did you give us? And stick to your guns. Like, they're not necessarily people who are gonna jump straight to extremes, but you know, they examine these things. They're students of history, and they've got things to say. And
Yeah.
so, if you enjoy hardcore, if you are looking for an emotional release right now in our current situation in the United States of America, if you're feeling frustrated, check them out. It might really give you a nice outlet. And
Yeah.
yeah, check out What Choice Did You Give Us?
All right. I will be adding that to the list. Thank you for facing your fears, first of all,
Oh
and
yeah, I
coming on
mean,
here.
thank you to everyone who listened to me be weird on this episode.
You were not weird.
I feel like I'm in a strange headspace, but yeah, this was very
We
fun.
all are
I
collectively in
Amen.
a strange headspace.
It's so true. But this was good for me. This was very
We
I don't know.
confronted
Yeah,
our
yes.
doppelgängers.
We did. We resolved our two halves, our schisms. We resolved them. We've healed them. It's good.
Books in the Freezer is a bi-weekly podcast. We post episodes every other Tuesday. You can find us basically all the places at Books in the Freezer, or send us an email at booksinthefreezer@gmail.com. Show notes for this episode and all previous episodes are at booksinthefreezer.com, where you will find a list of the books and movies mentioned, as well as a list of different ways you can support the podcast, including signing up for Patreon. There are 3 tiers of support on Patreon. There's a $1, $3, and a $5 tier with different rewards at each level. If you are at the $5 tier, the Malevolent Spirit level, you do have access to the new series I just started called The House at the End of Fear Street, where I and different guests are making our way through the Fear Street books by R.L. Stine. There are 2 episodes out now, obviously about the first 2 books, and then later this week we will have the 3rd episode, The Overnight, with Anna Dupree, which was a ton of fun and you don't want to miss it. There are, of course, several ways to show your support that do not involve spending money. Things like sharing about the show on social media, or leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, or a rating on Spotify. All of these things are very helpful, especially to small indie podcasts like this one. So thank you, all of you, so much who have taken the time to do that. I have been your host, Stephanie, and see you next time on Books in the Freezer.